That is a very high threshold, and I think that's something we can all agree is fundamentally wrong. So that is a if you go back. So I work for an excellent minister, Minister Sean Fraser. He's the justice minister, and he has on a number of occasions that this bill will not prevent a religious speech from reading the religious text and will not criminalize it. And so we wanted to reassure everyone that that is not the and as I said, the intent of the bill was actually part of the legislation. That was a part of our campaign promises as well. So as Sima indicated, we had six witnesses, 35 hours of witnesses, a lot of changes were made, including situation. Yeah,
Well, there were many questions, first of all, to my office, and we have spoken a lot about. One was exactly the clause that the amendment that was introduced by the Bloc Québécois, which was the good faith exemption. So the community members were concerned about that. So we came up with the solution to how not to make it as like how not to make sure that the community understand that preaching your book, your holy book, is not crime. Spreading hate with certain hate against to some other community members. So that was one. And the second one concern was, you can mention it here as well with me, bringing Attorney General back to the picture because the original C-9 was completely and the judge and the community when they bring that concern up. We we already raised that with the committee, and the Attorney General restored after all could open a door to malicious persecution and lack of judicial oversight. That was a concern, and as the government, we addressed it along with our colleagues from the other parties. So there are a couple scenarios that was raised. That's why we put them as examples here. First scenario is a group of individuals, worshippers from entering while shouting threats to the community. And here the law applies, and it says this is a capture. This the situation is captured by the bill under intimidation offense, and it is an intentional act designed to provoke fear and prevent access, and that applies to all other things as well. Scenario two was a group of people holding peaceful demonstration near a community center, carrying signs and chants. As long as those chants are peaceful, are not spreading hate, could be angry. Anger could be there, but anger doesn't mean hate. So law doesn't apply here. That was another concern. What about our rights of protest? Charter this bill does not override on that charter right. And again, this bill does not block the access or does not sorry. If the person who is protesting not blocking the access to the worship places, and no one preventing from entering, then this is not captured under C-9. So your right to protest is protected. There are some bubble zone legislations by the municipal, but C-9 doesn't apply there. An imam delivers a khutbah that includes a traditional Islamic. This is not captured. If your imam tells you something from our holy book and explain it to the community in good faith, that will be a penalty for others. As long as you are not promoting hate or gathering groups against going after certain other groups, so you are protected. So C9 is not you as long as you are doing the good teaching. Scenario 4. Someone displays a swastika in front of a synagogue with the intent to promote hatred against Jewish people. Yes, this will be considered as a hate crime, and this will be definitely taken control by the C9. Okay. Scenario 5. Someone physically assaults a Muslim woman because she is wearing a under Bill C9, hate of motivation becomes a standalone charge with enhanced penalties, not just an aggravating factor at sentencing. This is a hate crime. And this clearly identifies this was a huge movement for the community as well, because we have seen 153 among the hate crime numbers that I or from the statistics of Canada. So those are the scenarios that I can share with you to explain it better, to make it better. Because one biggest concern from the Muslim community was the good faith exam
Defense.
defense.
No, I think Sima covered this very well. I know that we have a lot of legal terms. Is that your right to practice your religion is not affected by this. It is a bill meant to help protect all communities.
Thank you, Sister Sima and Brother Hanif. Allah bless all of you. I'm sure before we are going to open the discussion, I would like to ask Brother Hussein Hamdani. And by the way, Hussein Hamdani, he is originally from Yemen, but he and his family they moved to Canada. Uh, they came here as refugees from East Africa. Hussein is active in the Muslim community and professionally he is the assistant managing partner of his law firm. As lawyer, I'm sure has some concern about this bill, and maybe he can share some of our Muslim concern also. I'd like to ask our brother to share a few words inshallah, before open discussion.
Thank you so much, Imam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to start off by saying there's a lot of good in this legislation. Canadian Muslims need to remember, and I think people from the government need to hear, that more Muslims have died in Canada because of Islamophobia than in any other country in the G7 in the last 7 years. Think about that. More Muslims have died in Canada because of Islamophobia than any other country in the G7 in the last 7 years. Muslims in places of worship who went for prayer, Muslim families who were just walking on a warm summer night, got run down by pickup trucks. At a mosque, and somebody came from behind him. Three Muslims in San Diego when two gunmen came in to a mosque and an Islamic school, and not a lot more death. So this violence against the Muslim community in Canada is not only real, but it's fatal. So we're in support that targets this type of hatred. Because where does it Where do people? What motivates them with guns and shoot up people in prayer? Well, it's often the things they hear in social media, the discrimination, the bigotry that they hear. And as a result of that, it skews their understanding of the Muslim community and it inculcates hate in their heart enough to get to a point where they want to murder. So, yes, we have a clear vested interest in wanting to strengthen hate related crimes in Canada, no doubt. When I speak to people, when I speak to people who are in the civil liberties and I talk to people who I know in the Muslim advocacy organizations, C-9, and they've come up with about 4 or 5 things that, if with your permission, I'd like to share. So the first one is the removal of the religious exemption, or what's been described today as the good faith exemption. We'll talk about that. Number two, fear of unequal or politicized enforcement. That Number three, with respect to my brother Hanif, some of they would tell me the vague definitions of hatred or intimidation. What do these terms mean? What do they mean legally? Just confusion. Just khutbah. What are we allowed to say? What are we not allowed to say? Just the chilling effect of it impacts what can be said when you're reading sacred text. And a sense, and of course, about these legislations. So let's go through some of those points. And we had a previous discussion before this, and I was educated by both Sima and Hanif on some of these points because they were sincere questions. They weren't accusatory. I wasn't trying to be accusatory. Trying to understand better. So the removal of the religious exemption or the good faith exemption. Look, I wish that the government, the liberals, never touched it. Wish I understand that it was because they wanted that in. I get that. And now we're trying to go back and put other languages to reassure with this, with greater certainty. Because the fear that we have is that when you allow a door to be open, at some point someone's going to open that door. You can say, well, it's guarded by dogs and it's guarded by a soldier and we have a lock and everything mean that that door will never be open. So that's a fear that we have. That I wish we didn't have to formulate certain language to cover up to the fact that we removed what was seen by many as a protection, allowing for you sincerely believe in something. So I sincerely believe God teaches me the definition of marriage is a man and a woman in exclusion of all others. I believe that this is the Islamic traditional definition of marriage. I will teach that if I was given a course. That is my understanding. Now, there will be some outside of this building who might hear that definition and say that is hatred. You're discriminating against a man marrying another man, a woman marrying another woman. And so now we're in this debate whether it is a hatred or is it not hatred. So I had wished that that had never happened. The second thing that I want to talk about is the fear of unequal politicized enforcement. The example I gave in a room earlier today, everyone knows what the CRA is, the revenue agency. The CRA has various divisions. There's a division in RAD, RAD. It's called Review and Analysis Division. It's been existing for decades. They review and they analyze whether a charity is doing charitable work. Yes. Whether another organization deserves to have charitable status. Or no. Where is this financing coming from? Where's the financing going? This has existed for a long time. But when Stephen Harper became prime minister, and Stephen Harper had an animus against the community, when he became prime minister, he then introduced some instruments changing the role of RAD. A government, a government instrument, then to particularly attack the Muslim community and the Sikh community. And when Trudeau came in 2015, this was brought to his attention, and he said he was going to change it. The Muslim community then complained, and there is an oversight body called NASRA, which sounds like an Arabic name, but it stands for National Security Intelligence Review Agency. This is an oversight body. They investigate. Are Muslims just talking, like complaining? Are the Sikhs just saying, "Oh, will this be us"? Let's investigate. And when NASRA investigated, they too came to the conclusion that the RAD had been used to disproportionately, because it's a something that had good intentions and for a long time was doing good work. Then it was then weaponized to certain communities. Sometimes people being hypersensitive, religious minority gets attacked by government. So whenever there's this door that's opening that may not be used by this current government, there's no assurance that a future government may not somehow define things differently than the way they're being defined today. So, I mean, I have other points, but I think I'm hogging the mic a bit too much. So let me just summarize two things that I'm trying to say. One is there is good in this legislation. We need to combat hate. We need to combat hate teaching. Young people today are listening, filling their heart with information against minority communities, not just the Muslim community, but other minority communities. And sometimes that rage and that misinformation results in violence. We want we want people to be apprehended. We want them to have court. We want them to be charged. That's all good. Our biggest concern, what I'm hearing, is that good faith exemption was taken away. Now we're trying to fix it and reassure the community, but we have seen government instruments being used to specifically attack the Muslim community. What assurance do we have that this won't be used 10 years, 15, 20 years from now to attack the very teachings that we're allowed to talk today? Thank you.
So thank you so much, Brother Hussein. Very good two questions. This is still in the head of the coming thread. The one question that I have seen is religious teachings. For example, he mentioned marriage between man and woman. If we that is it against the rights of two S I plus communities? Hate to teach our kids that we believe the marriage is between a man and a woman. Is it going to be considered How will this greater certainty clause will protect our religious teachings that they're not considered as hate? And the second question, those questions are to you. Example as CRA, ruling and auditing of non-for-profits. Uh, can another government use this bill with changes to target groups? Or other words, could this bill be a door opening for other future governments to use against communities, such as what we have seen passed by the Harper bill? You can't answer that. As I can tell you about what I'm seeing as this government, and also by just my first question will be come to you. For this one, I would say, as a government now, we are aware of the issues that we raise concerns, how the community is feeling to our government, and our government is working on that. So that's for our government. So just to answer that, to answer, can any government use this bill with changes to the target groups? Any government that could be in the future have a majority and pass another legislation, can do other work. So this bill will not be a tool to open any door to do a such thing community if the government each have tools already in their place. So whether this bill was there, is there or not, any government in the future can bring any sort of bill that will affect communities or not. So I hope I could answer that. So C-9 will not be a tool for the religious teachings or anything that is considered for hate. How does the greater circle work?
Thank you, Steve. So the for greater certainty, it takes the language that was in the defense and puts it at the beginning of the offense, into the C9. So when a attorney general is looking at whether or not to lay a charge, they will have guidance from Parliament to know what would be considered under this that's in the language from the defense and the principles of that from the defense. It's given for the AG to know that religious teaching does not fall under the scope of this. And I want you all to ask yourself this really important question. Do you believe that any, are you aware of any religious teaching that willfully promotes hatred? That is a very high threshold. That is very hard. And I don't like to think that any of the religions that we like to follow promote hatred. If anything, the fundamental uniting feature of so many religions around the world is to love one another, to love thy neighbor. So I think that is the most important. Not fall within the scope of if somebody takes a beautiful religion and tries to use some of these principles to encourage people to hate others, that's when I believe that the law may be invoked. And I remind you, this is, you've seen it on television, read it in a book, beyond a reasonable doubt. There can be no doubt that this person willfully intended to promote hatred. So that's what I have to say. I hope that answers that concern.
I agree with you. Because of our religious teachings, it's expected to teach our kids what our religion is, and but it doesn't mean that the leader of the mother or the father are teaching their kids to go after certain communities, willfully hurt them, tell them really bad things. under the Supreme Court description, or to go around physically, not only emotionally. So for that reason, I completely agree with you. All our religion that's protected again as a response to what our board has added to confirm that educational, religious, political, and scientific statements made during a discussion or a debate are not prohibited if the speaker does not willfully promote it.
Thank you. For this nice information, beautiful and helpful information that you shared with us. I'm sure some of our concerns already we know that the bill is doesn't affect or it's not against Muslims, not directly, but hate, but still, as brother Hussein Hamdani said, he shared with us his biggest concern. But for me, as Imam, the biggest concern is that they call freedom of religions or religions freedom. That uh, I hope this bill doesn't limit our space, that free space we have in our masajid. Of course, as you know, that we are at masajid, we have musallis, we have people there worshiping, not protesting. We so if this bill anyway uh, or limit our space that we are teaching our kids our deen, our religion. We are teaching our kids, our families, our value system, what we believe. That's good for them. Uh, it's a part of our religion and it's a part of our identity. By the way, I heard many times the word of minority, and I'm working in this field, minorities, since 2013 as director of Minority Studies Center. So this is one of the biggest concern of the all minorities. Talking about Muslim minorities, how they can keep their identity. They have these issues, even for Muslims. Most of the Muslims, when they immigrate, let's say they came to Canada, and their biggest concern is how they can still be Muslims and Canadian at the same time. Canadian citizen, but Muslim identity. They introduce themselves Muslims before Canadian or Canadian and then Muslim. Doesn't matter. I mean, which one you want to choose, it's okay. At the end, you can be a good citizen, Canadian citizen, and Muslim at the same time. If it's possible, that's okay. But sometimes there's a that comes between um, your identity or your background, your culture, and the let's say the values what we have, the policy, the law here in Canada. So some part of our culture, some part of our deed, maybe if we go like this, if we have always the new bills comes and that some part of our deen, some part of our religion, like some of our brothers they share the concern about if we want to take keep our kids away from the LGBTs, if it's considered heat, then it will be a big issue for us for future. But I think most of the information what you shared and the answers you said, it was good. But I think still there is needs to be more clear. Brother Hussein, you want to say something?
Before I pass it to you, Brother Said, I just want to repeat it again because repetition is the key, the communication is the key, and that's the reason why we decided to have this meeting today to explain what is what is not, what the bill says, what it does not. So, once again, the intention of the conduct is very important. The intimidation is considered, obstruction, the willful promotion of hate is being but again, the promotion of hatred under a high legal threshold. And those are all legal terms, and those two lawyers are very, well understanding it. So it's not like teaching your kids what your religion says, but if you're teaching what our religion says to our kids, with the hate attached to it, and say that if you see someone like that, go and kill them, it's different. Or go and beat them up, it's a different level. So exactly, it's your ideology as a parent, as a Muslim person, or a Christian person, or a Jewish person, and you believe, right? Which makes us Muslims or Jews or Christians. And that's how, for thousands of years, those religions are still along and come to those things. So it's important to carry those values, and it's all good to religion is there to teach good things to our community, to our communities, not hate, not go after each other to hurt, willful hurt. Exactly. So that's why we shouldn't be really worried about that. And it is, again, it does not, the Bill C-9 does not criminalize religion or scripture or the peaceful expression of what the books, the holy books say.
So there's one more thing I forgot to mention, so I apologize for that, and it's good for people in justice to hear this. One of the growing issues that we're seeing is the conflating of criticizing. I believe that Israel is a genocidal state that has a genocide, has killed over 70,000 people, the vast majority of men and boys and girls, like children. At some point, someone's going to accuse me of anti-Semitism. At some point, if you criticize the state of Israel, there'll be somebody out there, because it's part of a tactic, that will say this is anti-Semitism. And so, there is the concern about what what is anti-Jewish. Like, if you want to criticize Judaism, their faith, Islam gets critiqued all the time. You can believe it or not believe it. It's up to them. Judaism is a religion. You want to critique it, you're allowed to do so. The problem is the conflating of criticizing a nation state with being anti, and that's the problem that we just want to make sure that justice is aware that we see it as two different things. The Canadians should be criticize another nation. We can all criticize Guatemala. We're allowed to criticize China. We're allowed to criticize Bosnia. We're allowed to criticize Saudi Arabia. We should certainly be allowed to criticize Israel without being anti-Jewish. There's clearly an effort made into more than, maybe even more than the imam saying something, on concerns, is that somebody makes a criticism of Israel and then they're accused of triggering a motivated.
Um, so the Canadian definition has an official definition. And as Canadians, from whatever community that we are from, we do have the same rights. We have the rights of freedom of speech, have the of protest, and we have the freedom of uh, martyr. And once again, in Canada, the anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, same way, they all have their description. And as long as the protests are peaceful, not targeting a certain group of people, willful in Canada, should not be concerned for our communities.
Have limited time. Sorry for this. If there is any questions, uh, yes.
Thank you so much. So I have a question from the public for you, Sima or Mr. Fact, the law in Quebec no head cover hijab in the public moving sector, as Muslim consider it as a hate act against Muslim identity.
Okay. So this is something that I really need to get back to. That it's a very sensitive issue for Quebec, and yeah, definitely there are legislations like rules and C-9 that is completely different. But again, it is a law that is also including for Muslim women if they are being attacked because of their hijab. So there's a protection that is going to be considered as
Because bill means when it's not legislation. This is legislation. But we'll call it Bill 21, essentially forbids people to wear religious, identifiable in the public sphere. Right? That was before the Supreme Court. We're waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. But if your question, if I understand it correctly, is well, this is clearly hatred because the vast majority of people who are impacted are Muslim women who wear hijab. Would this fall under Bill C-9? The answer is no. So so what Sister Seema's talking about is some woman with hijab gets ambushed somewhere because she's wearing hijab. That's what this is now. And one of and so what Bill 21 shows us is sort of the weakness of the charter because they have Section 32 is called the notwithstanding clause. So notwithstanding that this is a provincial or municipal or even the federal government can override that, right? So the charter is a wonderful piece of legislation. Canadians should be very proud of it, but there are ways to get around the charter. And Bill 21 implemented.
I'm not sure it's a part of the Bill C-9, but anyway.
I just heard from brother, and I will look into that. I don't have an answer for you for that yet, but what is out there is like relating CBSA being keeping sides with wrong, saying that, but I will look into that and I will try to understand the details of the reasonings and why it happened and what's happening. So I will answer to you after I do the follow up with the CBSA or the public safety.
For decades. So the question is, why now? Why now did they all of a sudden? Mac has had a conference for the last 20 years. Why now did they start pulling aside these speakers? Right? And that's the point I was trying to say is when you start weaponizing government agencies that have a task, but when you start weaponizing it against minority communities, this is what happens. When 8 out of 9 speakers get detained and sent back today, last week, you know, so that's the concern that we're trying to get government and justice legislation or an agency. Over time, it can be weaponized against minority communities. They got the same, yeah, the hypocrisy on the community's concern. A soldier who's got one on his hands was free to attend and to speak at a synagogue, and yet a bunch of speakers who were invited to a conference year after year, this year gets stopped. Now, that's not Seema. I know this is not you that did it. I know you're going to look back, but the point that I think the community is trying to make, or at least I'm trying to make, is you can see you can see how certain government agencies in a particular political context can take these things to attack minority communities.
If something happened to the Muslim, does it mean sorry for this? This is a big issue, but that's the government almost targeting almost could be happening. Some with this organization, yes, and it happened in many countries. I have issues with this organization or with this group, and so I don't allow for this time because I know the agenda, what they are going to discuss in this conference. I'm not defending. I mean, I'm not talking behalf of the government, but my point is, I actually I shared this before with some of our leaders that we need always to have our umbrella, our body that they can present on behalf of, not on behalf of. So there is many group as we know. It's Sunni. I'm not talking about the main Shia Sunni. Is no, no. I, I believe maybe different even ideology and something it's hate. I think something it's hating them is not hating me anyway. So the point is, I don't want to bring everything and make it as Muslim issues. Bell C-9, yes, should be Muslim issues and all because it's there is some relation between this bill and all Muslims, masajid, imams, I mean even the people, but not conference. Is it? And why they didn't make the same issues with RIS, for example, and RIS happened only 6 months as Medina. Again, saying that what they did it's wrong or right. I'm talking as general. We should have umbrella, and all Muslim groups should be a part of that umbrella, and that umbrella should represent Muslim, not specific organization looking on Muslim on themselves. They have. Okay. Thank you. Any other question?
The charter. Oh, there's a that goes through what charter rights will be affected with this legislation, and this bill, like the component of the bill. Well, correction. Yes, the government is of the belief that the charter is not affected by Bill C-9. Well, the charter, the charter is constituted. Yeah. So If any violates the charter, then the courts find that, and then find that part of the bill unconstitutional.
The law, no law that's inconsistent with the charter. Unless they go every action by town of Oakville, or whatever the laws that they've had has to be consistent with the charter. So the charter is override there, and the freedoms of expression, the freedom of religion are there. Yes, charter is there to protect people from freedom so that's always going to be there. The critics will come back in, or that's being defined here are these things that are like so before it was the defense was the good faith, whereas I sincerely believe that I believe that, and that was for decades a protection. And so where the Muslim community in particular has concerns is when you take that out, that type of language we have, well, nothing here is preventing you. It doesn't sound the same as the good faith. It doesn't feel like it's the same level of protection. And that may just be me just not knowing. But I don't feel that I've got the same level of protection that I, yesterday as I do tomorrow.
Hmm. So what? It's it's not the pushback, but when we put the bill, when we tabled the bill, it was September 19th, and when we had a minority government, and this clause was already included in C-9. It was not amended by law. So the dates after we do the second reading, as I mentioned, that it came to the committee, I think it was in October, and then there was an incident happen, and then the amendment raised by the Bloc Québécois. And when the Bloc Québécois raised this amendment, we were not the majority government, and we do understand the concerns. But what I believe at that time, when we look at the bill, that could be the understanding understanding from my reading, it's not. I can't talk on behalf of the Minister of Justice or the committee members. My understanding from it is, okay, this clause was not used, and those rights are already being protected by the charter, so it should not affect the community. However, when the concerns raised and all these discussions with all sort of like Muslim organizations and civil liberty groups and the community members, the response to the community concern was coming up with for greater certainty clubs. That is also confirming that educational, religious, political, or any scientific statement made during the discussions or a debate that will be considered as a good faith. So, and plus the charter rights. So that was the solution. It was not a political decision, but it was how the reading was there when it came to the committee and how we had to work with the committee and moving to the Senate, the debates are also there because that was a big question. What if you were the majority government to do that? Maybe we would move that direction, but at that time, whatever was on the table was the amendment of the exemption. And we had to, as a government, act responsibly. That's the reason why we were able to come up with a full greater certainty clause to make sure that the communities are feeling safe. We make sure this is, as a member of parliament, my role is to carry that voice back to him. And that's the reason why I'm this today, because he is the part of the, yeah. And he's literally coming back right after this meeting. I really thank you so much, and to Ottawa, not Montreal now, but now he's going back to Ottawa with my team. So thank you very much for taking the time. So at the same time, I keep telling everybody that I am your member of parliament regardless what color you support. I'm the person representing you. So you can always come to my office, talk to me, discuss the questions or the concerns that you have in your mind, that I will be the person carrying that message back to you. And at the same time, that is a little bit partisan, but it is really not. I am proud to be a part of this because I'm seeing and sitting at the tables where the discussions are being done. How this government, I don't have any experience from the previous ones. However, the approach that the government has, how they are listening as a member of parliament, like I feel very privileged to be a part of it. I'm not in the government, but being within that umbrella, they are listening and they do care about communities, and they do care about all communities.
once again, thank you for all our speakers, Sister Sima Acan, our brother Hussein Hamdani, and also thanks to me, Dr. Zena Al-Mudaris. Thank you for all of you. Our Mr. Mike, and he is here. I know you are also candidate for yes, council local, and you have one more here candidate sitting next to me for yes. So I hope all of you to be success, and thank you for the question. Coming always, if you have any question, you can direct mail that CMA office, or even you can share with me, and then we can deliver your message to our speakers with our CMA. Thank you. Bless you. Coffee is waiting for you. Yes, but our coffee and tea, you know, it's still important. But when you drink in place, there's some ruh, some spiritual in our coffee. So try test it, and it's nice. And our tea is made it with love, not with hate. There is no space for hate. In our
There's no hate. Additional to that, as Imam Safar mentioned, that we have two candidates for Ward 4 and Ward 5, and as your elected official, I know the value of democracy. Your voice matters. Go out and vote, especially for the day-to-day issues that we have in our riding and mainly provision when it comes to education and health. But municipality has lots of parts to it. Our everyday life is run by the municipal. So please come out. Tell your relatives, friends, neighbors, come out and vote for municipal elections, provincial elections, and federal elections. Because that's our duty as citizens. And it's important. Thank you.